evacuation, increasing port congestion, many more. Truckers going away is one of them. However, amongst these circumstances, the Indian maritime industry not only needs to first survive, then recover and also flourish, converting this adversity into an opportunity. Now, how exactly do we do it? Well, I don't know. Let's hear it from the expert. Our speakers for today's session include senior officials of Government of India, Indian and global experts who have very kindly agreed to present a 360-degree view of the current situation and the way forward. The session will be moderated by Jasmeet Makkar. Jasmeet is Director Skills Plus amongst many other organizations that he represents. Just to give you a little brief on him, he is a shipping expert with 38 years of industry experience in leadership roles with some of the Fortune 500 companies. He has a unique combination of technical and commercial shipping backed by an exemplary academic record. He's a lifetime member of Beta Gamma Sigma Society. Jasmeet is also a maritime arbitrator and a professional trainer where he trains on commercial risk management and technical concepts to practical experiences. Well, with this introduction, I really hope that you find the session discussions engaging and meaningful. Without taking much of your time, I will now invite Captain BVJK Sharma. Mr. Sharma is Chairman Shipping for FICCI Committee on Transport Infrastructure and also Director Ports, CEO's Office, Adani Ports and SEZ Limited. Captain Sharma, the floor is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So good morning once again, everyone. Nirja, that I consider all are present, and I would acknowledge the presence of Mr. Amitabh Kumar, our Director General of Shipping, Additional Secretary to the Government of India, Mr. Steve Felder, Managing Director, South Asia, Maersk Line, Mr. Dhruv Kotak, Managing Director, JM Bakshi Group, Mr. Shravan Revari, Managing Director and CEO of ARI Simulation, Mr. Jagmeet Makkar, whom Nirja just introduced, Director, Bastis Holdings Limited, and co-founder and director, Skill Plus. Gentlemen, once again, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome to this important webinar on business continuity plan for Indian maritime sector and the path to recovery post-COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, this maritime industry has played a role, a very essential role indeed in the short-term emergency response to COVID-19 by facilitating transport of vital commodities and products. Even during the unprecedented times, a vast majority of ports were open to cargo operations for movement of goods. However, as Nirja was pointing out there are still challenges like gap in the supply chain, congestion at ports, revenue impact for container freight station, and the shipping lines that are facing challenges. All these need yet to be addressed. But throughout this session of all these 3-4 months, I have been seeing very actively FICCI and its president have been continuously calling up the various ministries. I must also say the government was very open. I have attended lots of webinars where industry touch points were taken up and addressed time to time. Even our shipping minister was always willing to take calls and address whatever situation is put on to him. He even traveled across to other ministries to see whether we can link up and address a lot of things. So I would say that whatever possible in the COVID movement time, people have stressed themselves, including port operators, shipping lines, the ministries, and the port service providers, service takers. All of them have really extended themselves, and that's how we could come so far in this business till date. So FICCI really has been tirelessly working with the government, and I must also congratulate FICCI management on that. That the industry, and time to time they have been listening up to the industry needs, and a careful action plan for addressing various challenges being faced by the sector has been continuously addressed by the FICCI management. And we supporting the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister of India to become the Atmanirbhar Bharat. FICCI welcomes government's initiative to invite ship owners worldwide to flag their ships in India, take advantage of Make in India policy. Uh, we are confident that this initiative will surely double the number of our Indian flag vessels. And knowing that there are lots of industries where India is really good at. We almost do 60% of World Cup diamonds and almost 6% of world steel production, 10% of world cement production, but 18% of world sugar production. In the pharmaceutical field, we are almost 20% of genetic medicine supply, 60% of vaccine supply, 13% of jewelry, 8% of aluminium exports, 70% of rice production, pesticides, shrimps, and a lot of bovine meat exports. So we have inherent strength, and we in FICCI and in the industry we feel that we can stand up to this call of Atmanirbhar. And I also call upon all the partners here to keep raising their issues time to time to the FICCI, and we will try our best to address policies. I have also seen Ministry of Commerce being very active, and through Invest India, they have been attracting investments and setting up meetings within the international players. We in Adani Group itself, we have put up a global team and increased our outreach. And whatever Prime Minister has talked about, the four L's of land, labor, liquidity, and loss, we feel that uh, if this is addressed, there is vital interest in the investment in India, and people are beginning to consider India as one of their choices in shifting of supply chain. So, a lot will depend on how we go forward and address. But we know that entire COVID part is into three different segments where we have short-term impact and we have medium-term recovery plan, we have long-term recovery plan, and based on that, even port-based industry and ports are aligning themselves in depending on what is the essential good and what is the non-essential good, both goods and services. So, gentlemen, since we have an esteemed panel waiting, we would like to hear from most of them. So, in today's interaction, I'm really pleased that it includes all the government officials, our policymakers, shipping lines, port developers, cargo owners, logistic companies, the port operators, shipbuilders, maritime consultants, and our research and academia, among many other luminaries here. So I would like to thank all the panelists and the delegates who have joined us today, and a special thanks to ARI Simulation, our associate partner for this webinar. And I look forward to an engaging and interactive session today. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you. And I now request Mr. Jagmeet Makkar to moderate and take this session forward.
Right. I will just step in. I introduce Jagmeet. Jagmeet will introduce all the other panelists from here on. Jagmeet, over to you.
Thank you. सबसे पहले ladies and gentlemen, pranam, namaste. Traditionally, shipping markets have either gained or lost due to a mismatch between supply and demand for ships. The voracious demand with a very tight supply of ships resulted in a super cycle that we all know in the first decade of this millennium. Then it crashed during the global financial crisis. For the first time since the Second World War, both the supply and demand for trade is completely disrupted, and that too simultaneously by this black swan event. Shipping being a derived demand has also been affected. Even before the onset of COVID-19, the global shipping has been facing difficult times due to trade war, globalization. This was a term coined by Economic Times on 24th January last year, globalization, and gradual move towards regionalization. Because of the pandemic, more countries are realizing that they need to be self-sufficient. The result is changing trading patterns, and it will probably reduce the ton mile demand, and it's negative for shipping. And then we have, as Nirjaji and Captain Sharma mentioned, we have port congestion, labor non-availability, blank sailings, container evacuation issues, cash flow problems, legal and contractual issues, and very importantly, serious bottlenecks relating to crew changes. Yet, in spite of all these challenges, on the positive side, I would say that we have internet and the available technology that has enabled us to continue. For example, we are having this webinar. COVID-19 has expedited the adoption of digitalization, and it is another opportunity for us in India with our amazing young IT wizards. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the webinar today. Our sincere thanks to FICCI for bringing together some of the best minds in the industry to share their views on business continuity plan for maritime sector and the path to recovery. We are delighted that Mr. Krishna Kotak, chairman of the JM Bakshi Group, is also participating in the webinar today. While we have a number of senior industry leaders joining us today through this Zoom platform, many of our members are viewing the webinar online on FICCI's YouTube channel live. Introducing our panelists, Nirjaji said that I must introduce the panelists, but I think it would be like showing lamp to the sun. They are all well-established panelists, and मैं इतना गुणगान नहीं कर पाऊंगा because it's going to take a lot of time. You all know them very well, so I will just take their names and what position they are doing right now they are engaged in. We have our session chairman, Shri Amitabh Kumar, IRS 1987 batch, Director General of Shipping and Additional Secretary to Government of India. Captain B.V. J.K. Sharma, Chairman Shipping FICCI Committee on Transport Infrastructure and Director Ports, CEO Office, Adani Ports and SEZ Limited. Mr. Steve Felder, he's presently in Copenhagen right now. So Mr. Steve Felder, Managing Director, South Asia, Maersk Line India Private Limited. Mr. Dhruv Kotak, Managing Director, JM Bakshi Group. And last but not the least, Mr. Shravan Rewadi, Managing Director and CEO, ARI Simulation. Thanks to all the panelists that they could find time to be with us. Well, I'm going to start with our session chairman, Shri Amitabh Kumarji. The pragmatic, proactive and pro-industry approach taken by the Ministry of Shipping is visionary and will go a long way for the industry to come out of the prevailing troubled times. Sir, you have provided regulatory reliefs to help the seafarers and the ship owners, and also issued effective advisories on the monetary matters. Indeed, the Ministry of Shipping has been an example for other bodies to emulate. The Directorate General, see, we are in shipping. I have been on the ship, and we know how certificates are so important, not just for the seafarers, for the ship. You got the class certificates, other trading certificates, statutory certificates. What happens if the certificates expire? Even as a sailor, if your certificates expire, it's a big problem. So what DG Shipping has done, they have developed online modules through e-governance system to facilitate and expedite services to the seafarers and ease of doing business for the maritime industry. A module prepared for automatic grant of certificate of proficiency, etc., for various categories would automatically identify eligible candidates and issue the system generated certificates. Now, the candidates do not apply for the issuance of certificates or furnish paper evidences to prove their eligibility, and they don't need to pay any fee. These candidates shall be informed by email and short messages services about the issuance of the system generated certificates. That's absolutely amazing. Now, sir, in view of the lockdown resulting from COVID 19, there has been a perceived loss of jobs of seafarers. Will Indian Manning be able to recover its position and grow from there? What are the challenges, sir, that you see?
Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Thanks for such a beautiful introduction to DG's work. I would say uh, India is manpower supplying nation. We are a net supplier of manpower for foreign flagships. Manning sector, I would like to divide into two parts. Seafarers who work on cruise vessels and seafarers who work on merchant shipping vessels. Cruise industry, as you know, has been the worst uh, affected maritime industry, and most of the cruise ships are now non-functional. Obviously, the seafarers who are working on cruise ships would find it difficult in the short term to retain their job. We have around 40,000 seafarers who had worked on cruise ships last year. So we do suspect that if the cruise industry doesn't take off by October or November, there will be a short-term loss in cruise sector. But so far as maritime sector is concerned, uh, in Indian ships, I would say that but for the container vessels, all other segments of shipping is doing reasonably well. And along with COVID-19 also came a bonanza in terms of low crude prices. And tankers have done exceptionally well in this period, and almost all tankers are, working uh, beyond their capacity. The performance has been better than previous years. Uh, so far as the ships are in the water, in macro terms, there will be jobs. Now, whether that job will be taken by Indians or it will be taken by other nationalities is an issue which will depend on the micro level situation. The micro level situation being whether the Indians would be in a position to join the vessels if a job becomes available to them. So far, we had faced two problems. One was on sign off, that is, the people were not able to get off the vessel. And if an Indian was working on those vessels, that job remained with the Indian. Whether he had completed the term or he would have liked to come back or not. The second is that if a person is allowed to sign off, then there should be a replacement crew for that. And if we don't provide replacement crew, we will lose the job. We have managed to come out with SOPs even in complete lockdown, which allowed sign off of Indian seafarers at all Indian ports, at its anchorages. And of late, last 15, 20 days, we have allowed the seafarers to go out of the country on chartered flights. So far as replacement of Indian seafarer is concerned, India has somehow managed to send its people to take jobs, wherever they were called. 2, 3 hub airports have been developed. Doha has become a major hub airport for Indian seafarers, and people are taking chartered flights from Delhi, Mumbai to Doha for their onward journeys to other destinations wherever crew change is allowed. So far, we have not seen loss of job because of COVID-19, but there has been problems in crew change, and many people who should have been back to India by now have not been able to come back because the ports where the ship is sailing does not allow crew change for foreign seafarers.
Thank you very much, sir. That's very extremely encouraging. They have been. That's why the reason I mentioned perceived. So I'm sure that it's not the fact, but people just perceive it like that because some of the people could not join, especially the new building takeover in China and other places. But I think maybe that's a short-term glitch which has been taken care of now. So Indian manning has been one of the USPs. I mean, if we just count on the fingers, some of the very important things. One is our recycling industry, then our Indian uh, crew. Indian manning are supposed to be one of the most professional and absolutely fantastic. I'm not saying because I have been an ex-chief engineer. We always took pride in our education and the way we have been trained. But in terms of marketing, it has all been left to the industry itself. You know, the ship management companies or the ship owners. Uh, we go and meet people in different conferences and promote. Is there something which can be done at a very high level, like Ministry of Shipping, Ministry of External Affairs, especially Ministry of External Affairs, having a huge network of consulates and embassies, to have some sort of desk over there for maritime and logistics where we can hold some functions and exhibitions and make one-to-one contact and promote what we have.
See, the best ambassadors for Manning is the seafarers that we have. Uh, we have seafarers working on around 30,000 vessels across the world. We have more than 240,000 seafarers who work in any particular year. And there is no ship owning country which does not know about the quality of seafarers that India produces. Marketing in terms of pushing for jobs would be required if your quality is not up to the mark. If the quality is up to the mark and there is enough demand for the seafarers, then the only constraint that I see in terms of manning is the number of seafarers that we can produce. So far, whatever we are producing, 90 to 95% gets consumed by the industry world over. There are, limitations in terms of numbers that we can produce, not because of our manpower requirements or because of the infrastructure in maritime training that has been developed, but because of the requirement of onboard ship training for every seafarer for to allow them to complete their certification requirement. Because India doesn't have too many ships of its own, it has to rely on foreign flag vessels for ship berth training requirements of the seafarers. As and when more number of berths are available for Indian cadets, we would be in a position to train more people and supply more people. As of now, we are operating at around 28 to 29% of our capacity in terms of maritime training. This capacity can easily be increased to 80 to 85% if more ship berth trainings are available. So the whole emphasis of the government has been in entering into bilateral agreement with most of the ship owning countries so that more ship berth trainings are available. We don't have a cell per se, but of late in last 3-4 years, a number of bilateral agreements for maritime cooperation has been entered into by India and most of the ship owning countries. And we have seen a steady increase in the ship berths that is available for Indian cadets. We have as of now 30,000, almost 30,000 training slots on Indian and foreign flagships. We hope that this will grow in next few years. And as and when the ship berths increase, the number of Indian seafarers will also increase.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now coming to Captain Sharma, we come to the ports and the liner industry. As rightly the DG mentioned about that, it's just the liner shipping which has been, we are seeing that it has been suffering, but other tankers, bulk carriers, just to let you know, the bulk carrier was about $3,400 per day sometime in end of May. It is 10 times more today. I mean, it's such a volatile industry. We have seen cargo volume shrinking. We are seeing serious problems with container evacuation, increasing port congestion, black sailings. Captain Sharma, and I'll request you and also Mr. Felder after you. India and the rest of the world have seen many disruptions in the past, including the Great Depression and the global financial crisis of 2008. How is it what we are presently going through, this black swan event of pandemic? How is it different from past, and what challenges does it pose for the recovery?
Well, you just mentioned about the shipping industry. Shipping industry is really global, and whatever green shoots the oil industry had seen because of storage, I'm seeing beginning of charter rates in for the oil tankers as well in last 1 week. There are other experts.
Uh, I cannot hear you, Captain Sharma. Can others hear Captain Sharma?
Oh,
No.
Steve can
No?
step in. Steve,
Okay.
thank you for showing how Taj Mahal looks from Copenhagen.
Thank you. If there's a difference between where I'm physically located and where my heart is,
Right.
so so thank you very much, and namaskar everyone. I think when we look at it's very tempting to look at the COVID-19 pandemic versus other notable supply chain disruptions that we've experienced in the past. But my view is that it's totally different for a number of reasons. I think what we saw during the financial crisis, for example, was we saw a massive drop in demand. What we've seen in this crisis is we've seen this massive drop in demand, but we've also seen huge supply chain disruptions with lockdowns and international borders closing. And we've seen workforces sitting at home, bringing manufacturing essentially to a standstill. So it's the first time where we've seen a convergence of demand, supply, and workforce factors being impacted globally at the same time. Unlike other crises which have been, limited either to demand or perhaps limited to specific countries or regions. We've also seen for the first time, food security, for example, becoming a concern around the world. And of course, we've seen, it started in China, where the factory of the world, as it's known, came to a standstill more or less immediately. And as the pandemic has moved west, we've seen Asia come back to normal, but we've still seen demand being very suppressed in the likes of Europe and the likes of North America. And I think in India, particularly, we saw the supply side very acutely impacted during the initial phases of the lockdown, the first 3 weeks, and then it started improving thereafter. But we're certainly seeing now also an impact on consumerism in terms of demand in India as well. So there are a lot of moving parts. As facilitators of global trade, we in Maersk had the unprecedented challenge of managing supply chains with a number of challenges, including liquidity crisis with some customers, rising inventory, rising unemployment, which led to this demand shock. And I think what we've seen is that networks were adjusted quite quickly, and the ability to adjust networks in an agile way to meet the new demand levels became really important. That was managed far better, I think, by the industry than it was during the financial crisis. And, just readjusting and being agile and adjusting to the new normal, as we call it. I think we're still in that process of reinventing the way we do business now. The business models that worked 6 months ago today are irrelevant. And we're also being forced to create new products that didn't exist in the past. with a strong focus on customer-driven solutions. For example, it's the first time I've seen cases where customers have said, hold on a second, can you please slow down our supply chains for us? Usually the request is to speed it up. But that's allowed us to create new products for our customers, for example, around storage services and agile storage products. In terms of the recovery, just to answer the second part of your question, I think there are various theories, of course. I think we've by now seen every letter in the alphabet in terms of the recoveries. Our view, it's still very hazy. There's still a lot of visibility that we're lacking, but we are expecting to see somewhat of a stretched U-shaped recovery, and that means that we'll see some recovery in the second half of 2020, but a full recovery in the first half of 21. And I think, in India particularly, we've already seen a strong recovery in the exports, where we see the weakness today is in the imports. And that a lot of that is driven by the impact on consumerism.
Thank you. Captain Sharma, have we got you back?
I don't think so.
Okay. No, you're absolutely right, Steve. Whether you call it V-shaped recovery or U-shaped recovery, or maybe a bowl-shaped recovery, like in India, it's a patila-shaped recovery, because it's going to take some time. This COVID-19 is not going to go away so soon. I hope I'm wrong, and it might take some time. But what we need to see, I feel that personally, we have plenty of solid demand and supply. Everything was perfectly all right. If not perfectly, were reasonably all right before this hit. So once we take care of this part, I think supply and demand will come back, and things would be much better. And how has it affected your individual, your own business in Maersk, and what strategies have you undertaken to meet the current challenges, Steve?
Well, I think, initially, on a global level, we saw that, a lot of customers were really caught in a tight spot because they were very reliant on China for their supply chains. That, of course, has definitely caused a rethink to an extent, where we saw some cargo or some sourcing starting to move to an extent to parts of Southeast Asia, a little bit to Bangladesh as well. And I think that, the business, as it's been conducted over the past many years is certainly going to change in the post-COVID world. Retail and consumer behaviors are changing, which is going to impact trade. We see, I like your term, globalization, but let's say partial deglobalization, nearshoring are certainly areas that customers are exploring, because I think, there's a need to de-risk supply chains and to become more resilient. We hear that a lot from customers. And I think, one can choose to look at this as an opportunity or a threat. And I think for us, we see it very much as an opportunity. I think there's going to be a high demand for integrated supply chains that will offer customers single window access to their logistics needs, reduce the number of actors in the supply chain. I think financial stability of actors in the supply chain will become more important for customers. We in Maersk, we are on a journey to become the global integrator of container logistics by offering our customers end-to-end supply chain solutions. And that will mean that we simplify their supply chain needs by giving them a single partner that takes care of their needs for ocean transportation, landside transportation, documentation, supply chain management, and higher visibility, and allow them to really concentrate on their core business and leave the supply chain headaches to us, and improve reliability and delivery by having more control and visibility on cargo throughout the journey. And I think what we've seen is that this strategy has really been reinforced during this period, because customers have been very reliant on us to help them, and we've been able to do that because we manage and own a lot of hub ports. We have landside terminals in India, for example. We have 9 depots and CFSs. We have, of course, the ships and containers, and we have the information technology to support all of that and link it all together. But I think so digitization, of course, is one very obvious theme which we've seen play out, and we've been investing a lot in our technological transformation for the past number of years, and it seems that today this will accelerate the situation. A, because customers need visibility and simplicity, but B, also because even on a practical level, people want a contactless environment, at least until there's a vaccine. So, we've got a number of digital platforms which have really played out well. We've got our Maersk.com, which today is one of the largest e-commerce sites by value in terms of value of transactions in the world. We've got mobile app, we've got Maersk Spot, which gives instant booking confirmations and space commitments. We've got Twill, which is a digital experience for smaller customers, digital payments, digital documents. So I think everything that we've been investing on over the years has seen a sudden surge in uptake from customers. And I think in India, you see that acutely because people are very tech savvy, and the market is very change fit and willing to try new things. So I think, we're also going to, for certain industries, we'll see a higher degree of demand for last mile deliveries, for supply chain management, for short-term warehousing. And I think, the onus then sits on us really to focus on these new trends and develop them ahead of the curve. And that will differentiate, I think, some of the businesses from the others.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Captain Sharma, are you back? Captain Sharma, you're muted.
Yeah, I just...
Oh, fantastic. So I'll take it forward. We're sorry that we lost you in between. I'll take forward what Steve has said and ask you a question. Then you can add on to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Now, what he has said is basically, with all this manufacturing resilience as well as the supply chain resilience, the customers, they want that sort of flexibility to keep the inventories low at the same time, working in a way which helps their business, and service provider must be there to give that sort of service. How is India placed post COVID-19 to make use of all these concepts as well as the high level of knowledge as well as IT digitalization expertise that we may have? How does that help? How should we position ourselves to make full use of this change?
As Steve was praising us for our technical, I just now had a technical hitch with one service provider just cutting off, and then I had to switch to another service provider. So we have the knowledge base, our application in India and commitment towards service quality has to improve. Otherwise, in port sector, we are seeing that you need to have a cargo spread. Then you need to, so in Adani's, we started adding more cargoes, LNG, LPG. And as you are saying, since there is a supply chain challenge, we are going ahead and investing in inland freight terminals. We are investing in rakes. We are giving them total solution of logistics. So based on that, we have a plan for this year that we will be able to, either maintain the volumes or probably we'll see a 5 to 7% downtrend. But overall, India, we are seeing that April and May has gone down by 22%, and probably this year, Pan India will have 5 to 8% downfall in cargo growth. But projects are getting delayed by 6 to 12 months, and general cargo is down because of labor issues. But we see that it's contingent to what happens in the domestic industries. So, and also what will happen to the global economy. But the challenge is that all of us will have to extend our services if required to the customer demand, and if required, invest in warehousing, manage his warehouse. Customers are looking for more and more services as a total package, because they don't want to live with more and more uncertainty. Certain risks of the customers we have to take forward. We have to take over, and then they're more confident about staying with you as your customer. So it's important that rewrite our vision once again post-COVID, and government is thinking of writing a new vision document for 2030. But this entire recovery is on contingent on pace of recovery of our, industrial activity, global economy, and so-called change in our supply chain pattern. What will shift from China to India, and how quickly we'll be able to grab and provide them that kind of four L's that our Prime Minister talked about: land, labor, liquidity, and loss. And I'm in touch with lots of global players. We have put a very strategic, important team, but they continue to show concern. It's not going to be very easy for India to attract investment. We almost lost out most of the textile part to Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, Africa, Myanmar, Vietnam are very aggressively competing with us. So as a country, we need to grab this opportunity, and we have to handhold our shipping industry. Ports, I'm not saying that probably Q1 is seen 20% down, Q2 could be 5-10% down, but Q3, Q4 will be able to make up. And Commerce Ministry has come out with lots of policy changes recently. And since we have the port-based industrial land, we are working very aggressively on giving them a plug and play kind of uh, role, where they come and they have the land, they have the environment clearances in hand, and then liquidity is not a problem for them like we have in India. They have no problem with liquidity. So with this plug and play, and Invest India getting very aggressive about it, Ministry of Commerce, PMO being very active, I see if wherever land is available in the port or hinterland of the port, there will be port-based industries coming up. And we as a players, port operators, we have to get into supply chain logistics, look at digitization of warehousing businesses, digitization of CFS for stuffing, and well, should be less dependent on the labor. But labor return has still not happened. Hence, labor related cargoes are not doing well, especially fertilizer or steel like that. But we are noticing that imports are down by 30%, but exports have caught up. So that's a good sign that exports are catching up, and we probably exceed, and import export imbalance, which was there earlier, may get addressed because of this present situation, and initiatives of the government. So I see that railways have also come out, and they have extended carriage of free containers for 3 months. They should extend the carriage of empties further, which will then, increase the coefficient of railways in our logistics. Right now, it's only 30%, but the road sector is still not reviving. It's come up to about 50% level. This is opportunity for railways and coastal and other modes of transport to take over and get some grab out of the railway. But railways should, if they facilitate like that they have done in the past, that the empties are carried free of cost or cost subsidized, then the much needed railway coefficient would go up, uh, and also it would have, help the environment with respect to carbon footprint. Uh, and we are also concentrating to see that our liquidity is maintained at not more than 2x levels, and our return on capital employed is not going down by 12%. We are conserving cash. We have put a capex cap of 2,000 crore this year. We are trying to look at our OPEX, uh, and then trying to maintain at our EBITDA level. So it is not a normal scenario. It is an opportunity as well, as Steve was mentioning, this to correct a lot of things that we could not do in the past, and utilize this opportunity to extend our vision beyond the port and look at the total logistic cost, total supply chain solutions, and we all will then in port sector survive. My concern remains on shipping side.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. I mean, what I'm hearing is that COVID-19, there are a lot of lessons to be learned. But sad part is that the lessons are being learned at a very large human cost, and that is very sad. My heart goes out to all those people. But there are a number of lessons. Now, coming to the soft side of the business, the people part, we normally say, the company, when you go and see some company, there's a brass plate outside the door. But the companies are not those brass plates, the names written. It's all about people, especially in shipping and logistics. Uh, that's so very important. So I'm going to ask questions to people who are handling people more often than others. Mr. Rewari and Mr. Kotak. Let's start with Mr. Rewari. What initiatives have you taken in your organizations, or what would you suggest to keep the employee morale high, retain the talent, and refrain them from, retrain them, not refrain, retrain them to cope up with the technology disruption, which has been really expedited by this pandemic. Uh, it almost acted like a catalyst. So, what do you say?
I think to some extent we've been a little fortunate because we operate in the technology space. So having workers, so-called knowledge workers, uh, the adoption to working from home and things like that has been easier. However, sort of generalizing this point, not only something that applies to us, to ARI, but to others, is the category of people in common functions, such as just like all organizations have, they have HR, they have finance, they have accounting, you have admin staff. That's one category which is getting reevaluated, I believe, in many organizations as to how many people are actually required. Is it more efficient way we work digitally? Because that's got to. And then you have another category which is to do with who work with their hands and actually do things on the ground. So we also do have people in that category, and it's there where my heart reaches out, because you have these loyal individuals who, at this point of time, cannot really contribute to the extent to those who have the privilege of being more knowledgeable. As the DG sir mentioned, we hope that this transition will transition and overcome it over time. But I think the impact of COVID itself, and even if a person is being paid, the fact that they're not able to contribute to the organization has a huge impact. So I believe COVID 19, everyone is familiar with the curve, and everybody has gone digital, and everybody is actually, following the same profile of the curve in their own ways. Uh, I think we need to look at that. Also within the shipping sector in general, just briefly, shipping, ports, and logistics is something that we need to look at, the fishing community, which in any case, as per surveys done across 22 districts in 2016, and we have 77 coastal, rural coastal communities, 77 districts and more. And the average income was about 4,111 rupees currently. It's not really about just giving someone, I say, a catch of fish for the meal for the day. There's also a drift towards upskilling and teaching them how to fish, which gives them a livelihood. So there are opportunities here, and there are also some people, like I said, who are not able to be productive right now. It reminds me of a dialogue from Sholay, when someone comes up to you and says, "Saab, humne aapka namak khaya hai." And then the rest of the dialogue is a little tricky to put in context. So I think basically the mantras are very clear. All big organizations have followed the same path. plan hierarchy, go digital, accelerate digital, recalibrate your strategies on a weekly basis, have channels, and break through hierarchies of the organization to get things done. Find new emerging things. I expect that this group may have something soon. Jagmeet, you're muted, I think.
I was asking Dhruv to unmute himself without realizing I myself unmuted. So हमेशा बाकियों को देखना, अपने आप को नहीं देखना. Now, what I wanted to ask you, Dhruv, is that how much resistance that you find to the change which is required coming out of these disruptions. How are you able to carry the people with you and
I think first of all, Jagmeet, I'll just give you a perspective in terms of what is JM Bakshi and what we have experienced over the last 3 months. So JM Bakshi, we employ directly about 3,000 employees, and we have another 15,000 employees who are contractual in nature across our different businesses. We are in the port space, a little bit like we're a much smaller brother of Mr. BVJK Sharma and Adani. We are a container service provider and a ship agency house like Steve. We handle about 8,000 ships every year. We are a technology company. We provide technology to global shipping companies all over the world. We manage their port calls in different parts of the world. We handle close to 50,000 port calls around the world with our technology platform. We have the privilege and pleasure of working with the Indian government, with the port community system, and its rollout and its digital challenges. We have the privilege and pleasure of working with companies like Nuclear Power Corporation. I saw members today joining from HPCL, BPCL, large companies like that. We work with them as well. So we end up having the privilege and pleasure of really seeing different segments of maritime and shipping logistics over the last 100 years. Now, when I look at what has happened in COVID, first of all, I think just to take forward what Mr. Rewari was adding, I think first of all, as far as JM Bakshi is concerned, we have realized that the focus has to be on truly the blue collar. Earlier we were all talking about what is the size of my balance sheet, is mine bigger than yours, what's the size of my fundraise, what's the size of my IPO, my bond issuance, what's the size of my latest capital plan, so on and so forth, or what's my CEO going to be paid more than your CEO. I think the fact is that I remember now words that my father, Mr. Krishna Kotak, very clearly stated, that Dhruv, don't forget you are a Mukadam company. You may have a balance sheet, you may have terminals, you may have all of these things, but you are a Mukadam company. Steve, I'll just translate what a Mukadam is. A Mukadam is basically a labor contractor. And in the end of the day, my job and our job in JM Bakshi is to make sure that whether ships are unloaded or loaded, whether goods are transported, whether ships are effectively brought in and cleared properly, whether sign-on and sign-offs are done efficiently or not. And then you realize that this business is about people on the ground. It's about the truckers. It's about the labor. And when the labor disappears, you're not going to be able to load ships. Your port can be as big and gorgeous as it is. You're not going to be able to load ships. You are not going to be able to stuff containers, Steve, in your CFS. You're not going to be able to evacuate cargo from your ICDs. You're not going to be able to man your ships. There's going to be frustration with the officers and the crew on board. And they are going to be frustrated because they're not going to be able to go back to their homes. So I think the first and foremost thing that we have all got to realize is that we are a business where we are dealing with people on the ground. This is the logistics business. And this is a business where we have to be far more sensitive about people who are working on the ground. Now, I will not say this about others. I don't know how other companies are reacting, but one thing for a fact is JM Bakshi, we are very clear that our focus now is that we are going to be more and more of a blue collar company, and we are going to be proud blue collar company. We are going to make sure that whether it's our, the labor contingents that work in and around our facilities, it's the truckers, we now know exactly where 1,000 of our truck drivers live. we have spent full of April bringing them back from their homes so that we could make sure that the ICDs in Sonepat kept working to move Steve's cargo and evacuate that cargo. We spent full of April making sure that labor was brought out from villages in vicinity of Paradeep to make sure that cargo was being stuffed and handled and moved onwards. We made sure that between April, May and June, we were following up. And first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Amitabh Kumar and the DG Shipping, because I'm very clear about this, sir. Thank you. And I mean it with full sincerity. Sir, in April, sir, when not only April, sir, end of March, April, sir, the challenges that the various ship owners, Indian and otherwise, sir, they were facing, sir, with your leadership, sir, and I would say the humane approach that you had. I know ship owners, sir, were directly reaching out to you in the middle of the night because there were all sorts of challenges which were there, sir. And thank you so much. Because, sir, I think this is where leadership, and I would say the same applies to our entire ministry, sir. I would say the humane touch is what has enabled us to bounce back much quicker. The same way Captain BBJK said that the growth rates will be, for us, we have been impacted less. That's come from the humane approach that the ministry and the leadership have done, sir. And I really would like to, on this public platform, sir, on behalf of JM Bakshi, really thank the DG Shipping, sir, in the capacity, sir, your personal capacity and the office of the DG Shipping, sir, for the humane approach that you have done. And that's the reason, sir, a lot of things have been possible in terms of crew change, in terms of ships coming in, and trade could keep going on, sir. But I think just coming back to the question in terms of how people are going to adopt to the new normal, I think first and foremost, it comes back to all of us being a little bit more humane, understanding that there is a home, there is life, there is challenges, there are personal challenges that employees, colleagues, there could be people who are on board ships. Everyone is going to face, they're going to continue facing. Today in JM Bakshi, one thing that we have done is that we have set up a family day. We have started this from the month of May. We are into July, and like we do on Zoom, every Saturday, starting from my office, which is the MD's office, and my family, we have interacted now with close to 2,500 individuals within the group and close to 15,000 family members extended, sir. And that enables us to talk to them, be in touch with them, understand where they are, what are the challenges that they're facing in their home. Because, sir, unless we are not going to be able to understand on a personal basis some of the challenges that different people are going through, whether our own employees, otherwise it's very, very difficult. So I think in the end of the day, step one for us, we've got to be more humane. Second, how do you get people to adapt to the change? I think it's very simple. I think roll your sleeves up. We're all supposed to get down. We're supposed to work. We're supposed to contribute. I think the moment you create an attitude where people are feeling comfortable that their jobs are secure, that we are going to be able to contribute, I think everyone is willing to learn. Everyone is willing to be reskilled. So first you have to create an environment that you understand them. They feel safe and protected. And then you start creating and let them step forward and see what new options we have. So as you correctly, as Mr. Rewari mentioned, we have a large admin department in JM Bakshi. That admin department in the last month and a half, sir, has been, and Amitabhji, I think you'll be very happy to know the entire admin department has been involved with crew changes. Because JM Bakshi, sir, has done 8,000 crew changes in Bombay, sir, in the last 60 days, sir. And the entire admin department, sir, is involved with police permissions, with arranging close to, sir, at any given time, we have about 200 buses, which are with us, transport crew all over the country, sir. And I mean, and to be honest with you, sir, they are finding this job so rewarding that they're very happy that we're not starting the office at all. So we had very strong business continuity plans. And, you know, we had put all these plans into place anyway before. But realistically, sir, today, even the people who we feel conventionally can't contribute, if we just give them that option, you give them that little bit of a motivation and a push, sir, I think we are able to see a lot of people contribute, and they feel it's very rewarding when they, you know, they're able to help a chief officer whose wife is pregnant come back ashore. I think, sir, that's the most rewarding experience that we can get. I think that's the biggest, and not only for us as an individual, sir. I'm still sitting in an air-conditioned room, sir, speaking to you. But there are colleagues, sir, who are out there on the field. I think the reward that they get by having these options in place, sir, is tremendous. So anyway, I think, I don't know if that's answered the question, but I think over to you.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, you have covered such a wide perspective from the soft part of the business. the empathy. I mean, that's you don't have to be nice. You just need to be just. You need to be fair, and I think absolutely fantastic. We don't have much time, so I've got a couple of questions. One is for Amitabh ji. Sir, what are the policy changes are you considering to help the Indian maritime industry, not only to recover, but to exploit the opportunities presented by the COVID-19, sir?
See, the strategy very much would be what our long-term strategy has been. We want more ships under Indian flag. We want to use the cargo as an asset to build maritime industry, including shipping, shipbuilding, ship repairs, uh, manning, and whatnot. Uh, we want to liberalize our registration regime. We want to encourage more foreign direct investment in shipping. We want to allow joint ventures in ship ownership. We want overseas Indian citizens to invest in Indian shipping. And of course, in terms of training, because as you mentioned, manpower is one of the biggest assets of Indian maritime industry. We know that shipping is going for a large scale automation, whether in terms of manning, engineering, trade. We have started discussing with the educational institutions to introduce a dual degree course in maritime industry, dual degree in computer science and nautical science, or dual degree in computer science and marine engineering, with special focus on AI, uh, machine learning, blockchain, so that we don't only remain a ship operator, we also start contributing in shipbuilding systems. That is what our long-term goal would be. We were discussing with Dhruv's company on becoming a pioneer in contactless port call, wherein a ship and a port, they don't have to engage in any human interaction when the ship calls the port. That is our, 3-year vision. We also have plans to encourage ship manning, ship managing from India. So these are the sectors that we would like to move in next 2 to 3 years, so that a better shipping maritime ecosystem is built in India.
So basically developing, as you said, the clusters, maritime clusters around along the Indian coast, and then
Incidentally, the first maritime cluster is coming up in Goa. They have been allotted land, and around 100 member companies have become part of the cluster.
Thank you, sir. That's absolutely fantastic. Have many Hong Kongs and Singapores on the Indian coast. Why not? We can do it. Okay, Steve, when I was finding a bit more about you after we met last year, there was something which really was interesting. You were quoted as saying that empathy goes a long way, and you were talking about the 3 priorities. What exactly do you mean? Would you like to share with us? This is again the softer element.
Are you referring specifically to the COVID situation?
In general.
Yeah. Well, no, I think, we defined, at the outset of this pandemic, we defined 3 priorities for our approach and our response to the pandemic. The first was to look after our employees. And we took a number of measures to institute that. First of all, we actually started working from home before the lockdowns started becoming evident in South Asia, because we had already stress tested our business continuity planning and scaled up our IT infrastructure, because we had seen what had happened in China, and we had seen how our organization in China had to respond, in very short order to the pandemic. And then, of course, we also offered a range of assistance to our employees during this pandemic, whether it be something as simple as I don't know, providing an ergonomic chair because they had to all of a sudden stop working from home without all the equipment, or or it could be to offer some support when it comes to being COVID tested themselves or whatever the case is. So we've done quite a lot, and also as we've reopened our offices on a limited scale across South Asia, we've also been focusing on all the measures to put in place to safeguard our employees going forward. The second priority was really to keep the business running and to keep our customers' supply chains moving. And I think that this was something that we really committed to from the beginning, and we came up with some really creative solutions, whether it be re-engineering business processes very quickly, for example, to enable release of cargo without original documents, whether it be re-engineering our counter processes to provide a contactless experience, or scaling up some of our digital capabilities, or it could be some bespoke solutions for customers based on their needs. For example, we've done quite a lot in our hub in Colombo to have some sort of hub in transit for customers. The third priority was then to help society to fight this pandemic. And that's really where we were able to redirect a lot of our CSR efforts around this, with a strong focus on serving the communities from where we source labor, all the communities that support us. So, that entailed sanitization efforts, food parcels, supporting hospitals with the government hospitals with PPE, supplying ventilators in Bangladesh, whatever the case is. So I think, we were able to touch, almost 1 lakh lives, as a result of this. So these were the three priorities. And I think a lot of it is centered around empathy, because everyone's going through their own personal experience in this pandemic. As Dhruv said, some of us are sitting in air-conditioned offices, but there are people out there that are a lot less fortunate than us, and we owe them a debt of gratitude, in terms of how they're supporting us. So we've done quite a lot in that sense, and these three priorities, will remain with us through this pandemic as we see it out until it ends, so to speak.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. Just the last question now. I mean, later on, maybe we can open it to the floor. And Captain Sharma and Mr. Revari, Jennifer Fleming said, teaching in the internet age means we must teach tomorrow's skills today. That's fine as a quote, but where do you find teachers to impart tomorrow's skills today? Any views?
Yes, Makar sir. Yeah. I think the part of the answer is in the question itself, because you will find them on the internet. So having said that, I think the ingress of artificial intelligence and assistants, teaching assistants, etc., will be transformed. These are already happening. In fact, if you scroll through your gallery, we have placed an agent into this very video conference that's in progress. This is actually listening to all of us. It's doing a little bit of learning. I assure you that there's no privacy invasion here because people's videos are already on. But anyway, I think just a few points, which may be, I think technology will never replace great teachers. But technology in the hands of great teachers is transformational in nature. So I think, over the decades, even the premier institutions in the world, those bricks and those pillars have remained. So I believe that there will be a lot of access, very interactive and immersive access. The role of AI is scary. And, on one hand, we do have the empathy and the social dimension to what we are talking about. And on the other hand, fully juxtaposed and opposing is the technology invasion in terms of IoT and robotics, and which are actually human replacing devices. So purely from the Indian perspective on this fora, we need to be very sensitive, I believe, at this point of time, especially when it's received an impetus from the COVID-19. That how do we plan for employment and jobs and upskilling? So the teachers for tomorrow, coming back to your question, will need to address, I think, in a more structured fashion, the anticipated skills which are going to be created by the technology disruption in the first place. Also, we need to very quickly separate knowledge which is static in nature, like Newton's laws of motion, and we need to then add and overlay dynamic content. And for this dynamic content, we should be very open to embracing new methods related to the industry, so that people are a kind of invigorated workforce is created. The lines of between reality and virtual reality, the real world and virtual world, are already blurring. And I believe that the education system will also blur, the boundaries will blur between what's the education and, towards the end of your educational program and industry. So I think that's where the trainers will have a different role.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Captain Sharma? You're muted, sir. Still muted.
Yeah, okay. To add to everything that Shravan has said, we need to go back to our old Gurukul style of syllabus. If you have learned that every one of us now have learned a lot of things, staying at home, including doing a lot of household work, and there is no dearth of such teaching. Somehow, during invasion, our entire syllabus was changed, and everyone has to study that physics, chemistry, mathematics, that is not needed. We need to really change our syllabus, go back to the Gurukul style and see who needs to learn what. And then there won't be any dearth of teachers, including taking respect for all the living things on this planet should come back. That is what COVID has taught, to be human towards all living things. Till such time we take that message from this COVID is not going to go away. So we have to learn and respect the environment and all living things, respect our old culture where we were very different in our teaching standards, and there won't be any dearth of teachers. And coming to the modern side where we are talking about IoT, then we are talking about, so in this IoT space itself, a lot of education and upgrade is required, because old style of sensors and all that is going with real industry 4.0, and the new technology of getting data through IoT is coming. So unless lot of data are collected, we won't progress towards AI. We need a lot of data, then patterns, and then AI. So both old school studies and the modern technology understanding is important, and we have teachers right at home, and we, as said, between 0 to 8 years the child learns 80% of the lifetime learning. So with this situation now and a lot of old school learnings, if we bring back, modify our syllabus to include an holistic development of a child, we are up there and probably will be ahead of the rest of the world if we change.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Just one last question. Maybe this is the last, or if Nirjaji allows us one or two more, then maybe it's coming from the chat box. Sir, the shipbuilding. This is for Amitabh ji. For the shipbuilding, how do we see the Indian shipbuilding, considering that there is overcapacity already in the world for shipbuilding capacity in terms of GRT? For us, what is the strategic value of uh, having good shipyards, not only for repairs and retrofits, but the ones which can really build the Kamsarmaxes and the VLCCs of the world, and how far that dream is? Can you please tell us that?
I will just step in for a minute, Jagmeet. We have blocked their time for this 1 hour. If we need to first take their permission, if they're willing to stay back for additional 5 minutes to take these
Okay,
questions, and we will check the IT also.
okay.
So if you're okay with it, then it's all right. Otherwise, we'll take it offline and have it sent to you.
I'm all right. One or two questions can we manage?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shipbuilding is a high priority area for Government of India, and we have been trying, the government has been trying various methods to incentivize shipbuilding in India. We have an existing subsidy scheme for shipyards, wherein around 20% of the capital cost is given to the shipyards in terms of government subsidy. We are also thinking in terms of amending our right of first refusal rule, wherein the Indian built ships will get priority over other ships in terms of contracts and in terms of grant of licenses. Uh, there, these are the superficial, means that have been used to immediately provide some support to the shipbuilding industry, given the disadvantages that they were right now in view of the pricing. But there is a requirement for a better shipbuilding uh, infrastructure and atmosphere in India. The Goa cluster is one small example wherein small shipbuilders can be supported in manufacturing activity. Cluster would take load of most of the investments, infrastructural investment that small individual shipyards would have to otherwise incur. This investment can be done jointly by a group of 100, 70 or 80 industries. And the capital cost itself gets distributed amongst all of them. There is also a concept of knowledge transfer between different cluster members, uh, uh, a better CRM, ERP system amongst cluster members so that the requirement of one is met by the other. This is what is needed to be implemented in the long run at a larger scale if shipbuilding is to become a major activity in India. Uh, we have engaged 2, 3 consulting firms to come up with a pure blueprint, a proper blueprint in terms of shipbuilding. We know that shipbuilding industry is not going to transform itself in a year or so, and we need to have a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term plan. We know that our strength right now is in building small ships, tugs, offshore vessels. We need to concentrate on that and become better in building these vessels so that we don't only get orders from Indian flag vessels because of the incentives that India is giving, but it becomes a hub for international shipbuilding activities in small ships. And once we have gained this expertise, we can, of course, scale it up to VLCCs and other larger vessels. But that should be done stage-wise, and we should not try and compete with everyone from day one, as it may, kill the industry uh, in its infant stage itself.
Right, sir. Thank you. So basically, it has to be strategic, more of the strategy. Uh, you know, I have been involved in shipbuilding, going to Korea, Japan, China. We have the best of the naval architects from IIT Kharagpur. We have the best of the marine engineers who are the machinery supervisors. We got the best of the ship managers, and we got the best of the ship's crew. So when we have that people part, the software element, there is no reason why we cannot have the hardware part in our country. And definitely we will get there, sir. Nirja ji, I
Right.
think with that, first of all, I would like to, you will give the vote of thanks, but I would like to personally thank everyone, Mitab ji, Sharma sahab, Steve ji, aap bhi, and also Dhruv, Rewari sahab, thank you so much. And passing to Nirja ji.
So, well, I would just say that this was great. There were some perceptions cleared, there were some predictions made, some real time challenges on the table. Innovation in adversity is what Steve spoke about. Dhruv, your approach for getting down to basics was heartwarming. One thing that has come out clearly is COVID-19 has been the most effective chief information officer. It has taken digitization to a next level altogether. Uh, Thank you, panelists. Amitabh thank you for taking out time. Dhruv, Steve, Captain Sharma, Shravanji, thank you for sharing your vision with us. Jasmeet, you have wonderfully moderated today's session. And just take half a minute more to thank our sponsors for making this session happen. ARI, thank you very much. With this, we close today's webinar. Stay safe, stay better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.